alive today, whose interests are served by sabotaging the peace between these three Asian tigers? These are some of the questions which had prompted my journey through a part of the world that's fascinated me throughout my adult life. The Chinese, Koreans and Japanese, along with a fourth tiger, Taiwan, they'd appear from a distance to have everything to gain from harmonious relations, economic prosperity, cultural and technological exchange, progress and peace in all its forms, and yet they seem constantly to be on the brink of serious conflict. Many believe that if there's to be a World War III, it will most likely begin here, perhaps following some convulsion within North Korea or a confrontation or accident in the Taiwan Strait, which has long held the dubious status of the world's #1 military flashpoint. It could just as easily kick off with someone doing something silly on Docto. Barely a season passes without a diplomatic spat between these nations, a public protest on the streets of Seoul, Beijing, Taipei or Tokyo, trade sanctions being imposed, military jostling. The rhetoric is ramped up by political leaders and diplomats, seemingly at will. Their constituents react accordingly, and the rest of the world sighs at the predictable futility of it all. And the tension's building. China is rapidly building the world's largest military, and its navy dominates the region's oceans. Japan's rulers are attempting to overturn its pacifist constitution to permit an aggressive military capability. And a unilateral declaration of independence from Taiwan would almost certainly prompt China to invade, and that has the potential to draw in America, which has tens of thousands of military personnel stationed in the region. And then, of course, there is Little Rocket Man in Pyongyang, with his fat fingers still supposedly poised over a nuclear button. And the bad blood in East Asia is not limited to its governments and military leaders. Hatred, proper visceral blind hatred, simmers among the people of these countries, every once in a while erupting into violence. In 2012, in the Chinese city of Xi'an in Shaanxi province, a man called Li Jianli, aged 51, was dragged from his car and beaten almost to death by a mob following the Japanese government's nationalization of some other disputed rocks in the sea, in this case the Senkaku Islands, known to the Chinese who claim them as the Diaoyu Islands, which lie between Taiwan and Okinawa. Li wasn't even Japanese, he just happened to be driving a Japanese car. The Japanese ambassador to China was fortunate to escape when his car was attacked in the streets of Beijing the same week. Some of the popular protests are weekly affairs. During my journey, I spent some time at a demonstration by a couple of hundred protesters outside the Japanese embassy in Seoul against the sexual enslavement of women by the Japanese military during World War II, an event which has taken place every Wednesday since 1992. A large part of the crowd comprised schoolchildren. One expects florid anti-Japanese rhetoric from the North Korean regime, but how is anger concerning events which took place over 70 years ago still so fresh among young South Koreans? Who is stoking that and why? And the hatred of Japanese by Koreans is reciprocated, at least by a minority in Japan. Earlier on in my trip in Yokohama, a convoy of black minivans had passed me, a tirade of anti-Korean invective spewing from their loudspeakers. This wasn't the first time I'd seen such things in Japan. For many years, various right-wing factions have been taking to the streets of cities to threaten and insult ethnic communities, particularly in Osaka, home to the country's largest Korean population. But what could the Japanese possibly have against the Koreans? Were these merely tit-for-tat demonstrations, or was the hatred as deep on both sides of the Sea of Japan? The disputes do not always involve Japan. They're multi-directional. The installation in 2017 of an American missile defense system on a golf course south of Seoul antagonized Beijing, resulting in an immediate and precipitous drop in tourists traveling from China to Seoul, enough to shake the South Korean economy. Although the missiles were ostensibly intended to counter the threat from North Korea, the Chinese felt menaced by the presence of yet more American military technology so close to their borders and made their neighbors pay with unofficial trade sanctions. These hostilities, of course, have their roots in the region's history, which since the late 1800s has been a litany of man-made hellishness featuring war, massacre, mass rape, chemical weapons, firebombing, totalitarianism, famine, destitution, political oppression, torture, and atomic destruction, all of which remain vivid in the collective consciousness. Commemoration and remembrance of the kind which takes place at Hiroshima is one thing, but historical memory takes many, often more controversial and divisive forms in this part of the world. Before I set off on my journey, I knew